together. All the thing is that there's a lot that's happened with respect to public sector corruption beyond the anger and the uproar in the public. We need to do something about the state of our law, whether it is fit for purpose in the fight against corruption in the public sector. That's the ultimate reason why we're having this conversation this morning together with you, the members of the general public. So as we have started, you are welcome to join the conversation at the venue, the Executive Theatre here at TV3, and be part of this all-important conversation. My name is Alfred Okansi. I will be moderating this conversation for the next couple of hours ahead of us, together with our distinguished guests who are already seated and ready to also contribute to shaping this country, the discourse, and being part of the Ghana that we all want for ourselves and generations to come. So welcome to the National Dialogue on the theme, Fighting Public Sector Corruption in Ghana, making a case for an effective asset declaration law. So we'll hear from a few people who have been talking about asset declaration, the reason why this particular asset declaration law has to change. Something needs to be done about it. If we're going to be committed to really fighting corruption, especially in the public sector. The former president, John Dramani Mahama, and also is a flag bearer of the NDC going into the 2024 general elections, has also been talking about this. And the President Akufo-Addo himself as well. And a few other notable voices that we're going to be playing back just to set the issues in the proper perspective and the context. It is the commitment that the management of Media General has in shaping the discourse, the public discourse about very, very important issues of national concern that has led to we having this all-important conversation this morning. So let's hear from these notable voices who have been speaking about this theme ahead of today. Take a look.
$2.6 trillion annually. This equals 5% of the global domestic product. The World Bank has also disclosed that businesses and individuals pay more than $1 trillion in bribes every year. This regime of declaration of assets is a useful tool in the fight against corruption, but in many cases it has not been utilized to maximum effect. More often than not, the values that are assigned to these assets are either undervalued or overvalued.
Let's hear from Dr. Papa Kwesi Indom as well, one-time flag bearer of the Progressive People's Party. Is a founder and also one-time flag bearer of the CPP. Is a renowned businessman in this country, but a politician as well. And he's been talking about asset declaration, the need for the public officials who declare their assets to do so publicly and not put it in an envelope that even the recipient authority cannot even open it to see what has been declared. Take a look.
Because I have already done it. In 2012, I declared my assets, but I also made them public, called the media, and said, here is my assets declaration. When I was going to Parliament, this is what I took there. When I was coming, this is what I took back. When I was going as minister, this is what I took there, and so on and so forth. I declared it. So, and in 2016 also, when the Electoral Commission said that every candidate must declare their assets, some refused, and yet they were qualified. I provided mine. If you want it today, I will give it to you. So I have made my personal commitment, and not only about that, my income tax returns. I have brought all my income tax returns since the first year I worked as an adult and made them all available. And this year also I went and paid my income taxes and showed it to the media. This is how much I made. This is how much I paid. So everybody needs to make a personal stand on corruption. It is no longer acceptable to stand somewhere and say, I'm not corrupt, and yet refuse to do the practical things that will show people that indeed you will act on it. So my commitment is not by saying I will. I have done it, and I'll continue to do it.
That's Dr. Papakwe Sindom there. He says if you want to see his asset declaration form, he is ready. He will make it public for you to see. I'm sure everyone gathered here, public servants will do same. Let's hear from President Akufo-Addo as well, who spoke about this a couple of times, as a matter of fact, even before he became president, and while he is president, he said it. Take a look.
Corruption can stultify the economic aspirations of any nation. Globally, the World Economic Forum has estimated the cost of corruption around the world at some 2.6 trillion United States dollars a year. I accepted the invitation to speak here in order to take advantage of this occasion to place once again, my government's record on corruption for public scrutiny. It will show that my government has undertaken arguably the boldest initiative since our nation attained independence, nearly 66 years ago, to reform and strengthen the capacity of our institutions to tackle corruption in the public sector. Charity, they say, begins at home. And that is why so far, every single alleged act of corruption leveled against any of my appointees has been investigated by independent bodies such as SHRAJ, the CID, and in some cases by Parliament itself.
Well, so that's President Akufo-Addo there. These are voices, and in fact, we have a lot more of these notable voices and public servants who have been speaking about this asset declaration law and how important it is. And that's why for us here at Media General, we put together this all-important conversation. And if you're just joining us on television, welcome. This is the National Dialogue on the fight against corruption in the public sector in Ghana, making a case for an effective asset declaration law. It's a national dialogue that the management here at Media General put together to also contribute to shaping the discourse here in this country when it comes to the fight against corruption. So if you're watching us, you're welcome to join us here at the Executive Theatre at TV3. And we have the notable persons who have joined us, plus some affiliate interest groups as well, giving us all the support that we need. We're live as well on 3FM 92.7 and TV3 Ghana on Facebook, and also DSTV channel 279 all across the world on 3news.com. Joining us this morning for this conversation, we have Alfred Tia Yeboah is a Deputy Attorney General and Minister of Justice of the Republic of Ghana. Please, let's put our hands together for him. Thank you. Name, welcome. Also, Joseph Whittal is the Commissioner for the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice, SHRAJ. Let's put our hands together for him as well. And later on, as we go on, we would have private legal practitioner Martin Pebo would also be joining us in a bit. So in his absence, let's put our hands together for him. Right. And then also, we have joining us for this all-important conversation, Jacqueline Abba Opoku, the Deputy Executive Director, Intelligence and Monitoring at the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO. Thank you very much for coming. And we have herein represented the Media Foundation for West Africa. Please give us a wave. And then also, we have joining us virtually the former Auditor General of the Republic of Ghana, Daniel Yao Damelevo. Please, let's put our hands together for him. Yes. So we also have the Center for Democratic Development, CDD, Director of Programs and Advocacy is here with us, Dr. Kojo Pumpuni Asante. Please, let's put our hands together for him as well. Thank you very much. Now, we will take this quick break. When we are back, we will zoom straight into this conversation. I'll be acknowledging a few more of the people who have joined us. And as I indicated earlier, this is a conversation that is open to the public. If you have time, you can either join us in person or virtually at the Executive Theatre here at TV3. It's always welcome. My name is Alfredo Kanse. We will be back shortly after this quick break, and then we'll start the conversation on the Asset Declaration Law, whether it's fit for purpose in our commitment to fight corruption in the public sector. Stay with us. We'll be back shortly.
This is Hot Issues, your passport to the most compelling conversations of our time. We go one-on-one with the movers and shakers, the thought leaders, and the game changers. We ask the questions that matter, and we don't back down.
Tonight on Hot Issues, I sit with the man at the Center of Corruption Investigations.
Join me on Hot Issues here on TV3.
Hot Issues, coming soon on TV3.
TV3, first in news.
Ladies and gentlemen, mark your calendars for the most spectacular event of the year. On Saturday, October 14, the Aviation Social Center transforms into a food lover's paradise as we proudly present the TV3 Schools Connect, Food Bazaar, and Kitchen Wars Grand Finale. It's not just a food festival, it's a party too. Which senior high school wins the basketball and five-a-side soccer tournament is a showdown like no other. And for all you nostalgia seekers, we've got the sweet sounds of old school music to transport you back in time. And now the big one, the grand finale of Kitchen Wars. Watch as the final four schools battle it out for culinary supremacy. Who will be crowned the champion of the kitchen? TV3 Schools Connect on Saturday, October 14 is the ultimate fusion of food, music, sports, and entertainment. So save the date, tell your friends, and get ready to savor the flavors. TV3 Schools Connect and Kitchen Wars Grand Finale, where food meets fun. Kitchen Wars, your school fit cook. The TV3 Schools Connect is sponsored by Gino, PGL, and Napa Foods.
Welcome back to the National Dialogue here at TV3 on the Asset Declaration Law in its current state, whether it's indeed fit for purpose in that commitment to fight corruption, especially in the public sector. My guests, as already introduced, are here with me in studio and then also virtually. Let me start off with you, Mr. Wetao. Let's have a clear understanding of the current state of the Asset Declaration Law because of the specific concerns that have been raised about the inefficiencies. If we're really going to win the fight against corruption in the public sector, why is this Asset Declaration Law in this current form not fit for purpose?
Right, thank you so much. And, the Commission's interest in a robust asset declaration regime spans from its function under Chapter 24. Chapter 24 embodies the Code of Conduct for Public Officers. And out of that, you have asset declaration as one of the codes of conduct that the Constitution has made provision for. We also have the conflict of interest and also the importance of oath swearing and its effect. Now, if you look at since the 1992 Constitution came into being, Chapter 24 only gave a skeletal outline of what requires to be done. The nearest we came to is to pass the Act 550, which is the Public Officers Qualification and Disqualification Assets Declaration Act. And that, I think, was a shoddy job done by Parliament. I must say, with all respect to Parliament.
It's a shoddy job.
Yeah, at that time. If you look at what should be in an asset declaration law, what is provided there is as if we are taking public service as a process by which we want to hide public servants from the people who they are supposed to serve. Why do I say that? Under the Rawlings regime, I played a bit of a role shortly before constitutional rule. I had to declare my assets. So it means that there was a pre-existing P&DC law which required public declaration of assets. But when we came to the constitutional period, we did away with the requirement for declaration publicly of the assets of public officers. Now I'm saying that because public service is a trust. If you want to govern the people well, let the people know before you came into office what assets and liabilities you had. I stress the liabilities too, because if you are somebody who is indebted and you come and you take public office, the likelihood is that you may not be able to do, you may be looking for resources to take care of your liabilities. So we should make sure that we keep the balance very well. Asset declaration of properties and others, and also your liabilities. If you prevent that from happening, then that is a problem. The next is the Auditor General has been given the power to receive these assets that are declared and to keep them. He has not been given the opportunity since then for verifying. People will say, you declare, you put them in the envelope and put it down. I don't think the law really says put it in an envelope. But the law doesn't give any opportunity for the assets to be verified. So if you say you have a home in, say, Ada, that is what you have said. The Auditor General cannot even go behind that to know whether that home is for the value that you have indicated, or actually belongs to you, or whatever it is.
So the element of verification is absent.
It's absent. It's absent in the current law. And finally, we have a complete mismatch of sanctions. Practically no sanctions are given. No sanctions. We only went and picked the constitutional provision which says that the commissioner or the Chief Justice, as the case may be, will take appropriate action arising out of the investigation of a particular assets declaration allegation. But you know, discretionary power has to be limited. If you've not given sanctions, what prevents Parliament from putting sanctions in the law and leaving it to the discretion of the Commissioner for Human Rights and Administrative Justice or the Chief Justice, as the case may be, to take appropriate action? What is there? Why don't you spell it out? If you want criminal sanctions to attend upon it, fine. If you want administrative sanctions to be attended to, fine. That gives something to the Commissioner or to the Chief Justice to ensure that whatever is the outcome, they will be able to apply a sanction that is known by law to the people before they committed it. But the law expects that you don't make a law. If you don't make a law that is known to the people, you don't use a sanctioning regime that they are not aware of. So these are the things that made me to come to the conclusion that no, Parliament could do better. But we are now in 30 years of constitutional rule. We have not done much in this direction. But I know that the current Attorney General and his colleagues in office are putting together something. We are not yet very certain. We've seen some bills, draft bills running around. We don't know which one has been held out by the Attorney General. Even the one that we have, some of us have problems with it. We can still do better in tightening it.
See, so at least you have the Deputy Attorney General here, so he'll tell us the exact version of the various draft bills we have seen that they are going with, and so that we also get to know what the deficiencies in there. But IOCO as well has a specific role to play in ensuring that the asset declaration regime is strengthened as well. What's your own assessment of the current regime that we have it now?
According to the requirements of the law that established IOCO, there are certain functions that we are required to take up. And part of what we need to do is to ensure that when matters come before us, which are within our mandate, we are required to apply the actual processes through which we can establish and then go through the process of going to court and getting the matter determined. However, our law also makes provision for us to, right from the beginning, sections 2 and 3, to prevent and detect crime. Once you get into that space, you realize that where there is criminality, you may have something which brings in the issue of asset declaration. You may have corruption before criminal activity, during the course of that criminal activity being carried out, or even after, so that probably the persons or the perpetrators involved would seek to cover their tracks. Section 70 of our Enabling Act also requires that we collaborate with other agencies. So from where we sit, we may have to receive certain petitions, assess that petition, and come to realize that it's something which has to be referred to the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, or since the passage of the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act, a referral would have to go to that agency. Having said that, in the course of our investigation of a criminal activity which is within our mandate, we need to also carry out a parallel financial investigation on the persons or the suspects involved. Many people come to the Economic and Organized Crime Office because, probably with the Rights to Information Act having been passed, that they want to know about a particular investigation that they are aware of being under investigation at the office. Such an investigation, which this request comes out of, or is born, or relates to, you will find that there may be a certain process that we have to go through. Because we have not completed the investigation, we are not in the position, and neither are we mandated by our law to give out certain information at a particular time. We are required to go through the process and then submit our dockets to the Office of the Attorney General. So while that criminal activity is being carried out concerning Madam X, we find out that she is alleged to have done certain things which are considered as serious offenses under the IOCO Act. But while we are doing that, we seek to find out information about the case, the actual issue that is under consideration. We are also looking at what that person, Madam X, what she owns, her associates, and other persons with whom she has relations with regards to that particular incident, or even beyond that. Such information we cannot make public at that point in time.
I see.
So in a way, part of our process requires us to look at the assets that that person has. Is this person a public servant? It falls into what we are discussing this morning.
Indeed.
So you would have to verify, and which would be an independent verification, so to speak, of whatever assets that are in place. Now, the challenge is that, as has been said by Commissioner, there are processes that one is required to undertake as a public servant. But the onus appears to be on the public servant to go through that process and determine in their own thinking. I don't believe that anyone has a particular orientation for a public service officer about how to fill the assets. So you haven't gone to school, but you are required to complete the syllabus and provide your thesis or your myself essay to be marked on it. Someone might innocently or ignorantly be, someone might innocently or ignorantly, let me choose my words carefully, provide certain information which may on the face of it look like it's a satisfactory declaration of their assets and their liabilities. However, you might find that such a person may have forgotten or omitted to provide some other information which is really critical. And because the law does not provide for a verification, as in other jurisdictions, where whatever one is supposed to earn, the perquisites of your job, your allowances, everything is set out. And so before you apply for the position, you know precisely what you earn. And everybody else knows that this is what Abba would earn at this position of Deputy Executive Director for Intelligence at the EOCO. So those are some of the challenges and the gaps that we find. And unless we take steps to address that issue, a lot of water will go under the bridge before we try to address the matter.
And I can imagine a lot of water has gone under the bridge. And we are still fighting this situation, quite unfortunately. So let me understand this. If during the PNDC period, before we transited into constitutional rule, there was the provision for the public servant to declare their assets publicly, which is without you did. So what was the reason for taking out that aspect of the public declaration of the assets of public officers? Because I remember there was times that people say, oh, because they don't want armed robbers to come and attack them, because they don't want people to know what they own. What was the exact reason why they took out that public declaration of the assets of public officers from the law?
Thank you very much, Alfred. Now, if you look at corruption itself, you realize that it is a very difficult disease that we can fight. And it's a cancerous tumor that if you want to uproot, you need a lot of effort. Now, if you look at Act 550, it has effectively repealed the PNDC Law 280 that you just mentioned. The reason for which it was repealed, I cannot sit here and stay, but Parliament in its wisdom decided to pass a law that has effectively repealed PNDC Law 280. For publication of assets. Now, as the Commissioner said, if you have assets A, B, C, and D, liability A, B, C, and D, it should not be difficult for you to declare it. If actually you are very sure that declaration is something that or those assets are assets that you properly acquired. Now, the question about whether you are to publish it in the dailies or for everybody to see, the current law does not make such a provision. It's about you writing it as I did mine, then go to the Auditor General in a brown envelope, you dump it there, you take your receipt, you come back home, and you sleep. So if, for example, I have to use myself, I want to acquire assets more while I'm in this particular office. The simple thing for me to do was just to say, I own a house in Sunyani, that's my home base.
Right.
3-bedroom house. But in my declaration, I may say I have 10-bedroom house in Sunyani. If you go to Sunyani, you see a house there.
Yes.
So you may say, oh, DAG has a house in Sunyani. But since you've not verified, it's possible that within the 4 years that I will be in office, I will go remodel that house to a modern edifice.
And make it 10 bedrooms.
That is it. And so that's a house. So these are some of the shortfalls in the current law. Then you also look at people who come to public offices and then they try to acquire property in the name of others, proxy ownership. Because if you're a bad person, what you do is that, fine, I've declared A, B, C, and D. But now I'm not going to acquire anything in my name. I'll have someone that will acquire the property in his name. And at the end of the day, if you want to verify whether I've used public funds to acquire property illegally, you cannot get me. Because it may be in the name of my uncle, my wife's sister, my wife's brother, A, B, C, and D. So that's also another real challenge. Now, we pose the question, what the AG, the government, what are we supposed to be doing? There is in the offing this Conduct of Foreign Officers bill. This bill has gone through extensive consultation and the
Respectfully, before we get into the Conduct of Public Officers bill, in your own wisdom, do you think that the Parliament did a good job in the process of repealing 280 and now replacing it with 550? Because in my understanding, law has to also tie into the progress of society, is it not? So if we are repealing one law to replace with it another, and the current law is more of a retrogression of the previous law we sought to replace, then we haven't done the people any good.
Yes, let me take you back. Now, if you go to the 1969 Constitution, there was a provision on asset declaration, but to a very limited number of people, very limited. 79, we moved forward by expanding the scope. Then we had this military regime that decided to bring a law that required that you publish the assets. We came to a constitutional regime, our own representatives. That's the price we have to pay for democracy. And
MPs?
Yes.
They went to Parliament.
They represent you and me. They went to Parliament and realized that they were going to pass a law that would not make it possible for you to publish the declaration for people to know.
But that was not the interest of the people. I don't think they really represented our interest in that.
And that's the reason why we need to review that act. And when we review it, it has to go back to them. So that's the next question. And remember, they are also part of the people who are also supposed to also declare their assets if this law goes through. So the only thing is that we will have the bill as we have it. At the end of the day, it will be taken to Parliament. It will be the duty of Parliament to also pass the law into an act. As to whether they'll be ready to also say, fine, we may want everybody to publish it for everyone to see. I think it's because of our extended family system. Like my friend people here, if people get to know that, Martin has 10-story buildings in Accra, X amount in Bank A, Treasury bills XY, and other things. The thinking is that all the people in his community may come to his, offer, uncle, or maybe so at least they may want to
queue for school fees and things.
Exactly. So people also want to try to also maybe protect that bit. And I think it's a debate that we need to look at holistically. Are we prepared to do it? If I'm prepared to do it, speaking for myself, if you have property A, B, C, and D, and people can see it, what prevents you from letting others also see it? If I own 10 houses, others know, people know. Perhaps it's only things that I have in my bank accounts. That one, because of disclosure, the banks will not let you know what I have in my bank accounts. But perhaps I can make it a to say that I have an account at bank A, B, C, and D without stating the amount in those accounts. Maybe if someone wants to know how much I have in that account, commissioner is there, they may want to activate the process to know how much I have in that account. But there should be information that I have an account in bank A, B, C, and D. And that would be a step forward. And if you look at the current bill, there is a provision on verification of the declaration that you have made.
I see.
The Auditor General reserves the right to write to you requesting that you provide information on the declaration that you have made. So if you realize that you have a land, a bare land, and it tells you where is that land? It is in Damango. All right, we may want to find out whether you actually have that land in Damango. Because I can say I have a land in Tamale. Sure. For you, I don't have any land in Tamale. I assume the office that I acquired that piece of land in Tamale. So there's that process of verification. And the punishment regime under this bill, if you fail to respond to that verification process, you've committed a criminal offense and you can be prosecuted, fined, or jailed, or both. So that bit has been catered for in the current bill. Now, if you look at the bill once again, you have instances where people have beneficial interest in other assets. For example, my son may have a property that I've acquired in his name. Effectively, I have an interest in that property. So the bill seeking to also let BOD, beneficial ownership disclosures. So at the end of the day, if you have interest in things that are not in your name, you need to also disclose that one. So that when it comes the time for accountability, we can know that if my son has a property and now he has three different houses, how come that he being a public officer, he was able to acquire those 3 properties within the space of 4 years? So as the people, to fight this corruption problem that we have, I think we've got to a point where we need to discuss the issues dispassionately, make certain decisions. Because I've always insisted that a fight against corruption is a collective fight. It's not an individual fight. This is a shared responsibility. As a deputy AG, I cannot fight corruption alone. Media General, you cannot fight alone. Commissioner Mary cannot, but at least if we're able to do our bit and pieces, we can fight that problem. And people have the impression that if you are in the private sector, it is only people in the public sector who are supposed to declare. True. But if we're a private sector collaborator, or you're also exposed, that you must look at that bit. Because if you are in a private institution, I'm in a public office, I'm so close to you. Even though I've not disclosed that, I'm so close to you. There's a possibility for you to know that Deputy AG has his brother as the MD of company A, B, and Z. So they can also monitor him to know how he's also, because it's possible that through that process, he can be getting all the fat contracts, or all manner of things, and he will be acquiring a property on my behalf, albeit not in my name. So apart from looking at public officers, let's also see how we can also rope in some private actors so that we can frame
Is that catered for in the current bill?
It is not in it. I said we need to look at
okay.
it.
But the public declaration of the assets of public officers, is that catered for in the bill? Does the bill specifically state that the president, deputy AG, your boss, or the others, members of parliament, they should publicly declare their assets? Is it catered for in the bill?
It is not declared. It's not catered for in the bill that they should publicly declare their assets and publish them. No, you declare per the bill that we have. You submit to the Auditor General. You know, close as we've been doing it. You not seal it. The Auditor General will go through it and then write back to you for further information. That's the verification process we have it now. So there's no provision in the bill stating that it must be published. What is in the bill is that the Auditor General reserves the right or has the duty to publish in the dailies all those who have declared their assets.
But not the details of the assets.
Not the details of it, yes.
But Mr. Kpebu, now Martin Kpebu is joining us now. He's a private legal practitioner and the convener of the Komipreko Reloaded demonstration. Lawyer, so if this current conduct of public officers bill falls short of the public declaration and publishing of the assets of public officers, it doesn't make provision for that. Have we done anything really significant in changing the paradigm as we have it now, even though the verification bit has been taken care of in this bill?
Okay. So I must answer that. The first part is that I don't know if seniors heard the president. At the bar conference, President Kufuor indicated that there is a new bill, and his emphasis was that it's world-class, modeled in the nature of the Kenyan and the U.S. ones, okay? Modeled in the nature of the Kenyan and the U.S. ones. So once he said so, and you know, in all of this discussion, Dr. Asante is here. This, at least some of the literature I've been reading, in the early 2000s, when President Kufuor was in office, you know, they were on this fight, right? And I read some of the papers they've done. The heart of this matter, and Commissioner Vitalis mentioned it, Senior Tuya Yeboah so mentioned, it's about the publication. So for me, there is bias, but when the president said he's giving us world class, it will be in the nature of Kenya and the US. Straight away, my emphasis or my curiosity was drawn to the matter of publication. And if you go and look at the US one and the Kenyan one, the publication bit is that it's with the commission. So anybody who wants will now write, you apply. Then they will look at it and determine whether to give you or not. That's if your reasons are legitimate. So all I'm saying one way is that, so from what the president is saying, then it means that, Senior, Deputy AG, it means that it must be an improvement on this one. This can't be the one. Because if it's we call it 2022, if it's the 2022 one, he cannot say...
You mean the Conduct of Public Officers Bill?
Yes, the one we all have.
It doesn't meet that standard of the Kenya and the...
Excellent.
And the US one?
Yes. This one is just a repetition of the current constitutional provision, Article 286, right? So it tells you that there is a newer and better version. Because I can't see how, Commissioner, what do you think? The president can't tell us that he's going to give us world class, modeled in the nature of Kenya and US. And this one is the 1992 Constitution, basically. This one is big because Siraj, even, you ask Mr. Domlevo, he will tell you that for him, he's been opening, they've been opening for some years now and doing some basic verification. So if the president says, if it turns out that what the president is talking about is this bill we know, then no, that's not Kenya and US. So
But is there any other bill apart from this one?
Yeah, so there must be. So one last sentence, because you see, the US one, you have to apply. Kenya, you have to apply. I've been circulating that because I pulled the Kenya one off the net, and you see that you apply, and they look at the reasons and determine to give you or not to give you. The US one, the same. And we are saying that no, as Commissioner is here, it's even better that he has experienced it practically. If in the 70s we're publishing assets, and when I say 70s, Commissioner, I want to even go back, and Deputy AG mentioned it. Apart from PNC Law 280, you see Deputy AG mentioned this sentence that in the 70s, in the Kufu's regime, you had to go before a commission to be assessed first before you could stand for president, vice, members of parliament. So I have SMCD 224 here. You read, I'm interested in this provision. It says, section 4, it says, no person who has held any of the public offices specified in subsection 2 of this section shall be eligible to stand as a candidate for election as president, vice president of Ghana, or member of the National Assembly or Parliament, unless his assets acquired while he was a holder of any office so specified have been investigated by a commission appointed under the Standing Investigation of Assets and Other Matters Commission Decree 1979, SMCD 225. So, and you go on. And the offices include being NLC member, being a member of the SMCD, all the military regimes, member of parliament, they are long. So the point I'm making is that even before PNDC Law 280, we had an earlier law where before you enter office, you had to declare all your assets, and then publicly you'll be investigated to see whether what you already have, even before going into office, was legitimately acquired. So if in the 70s, you had to declare even before entering and had to be investigated, then we cannot look at this today
in 2023
and say we've made any progress. So the current constitutional provision, so all I'm saying is that putting all this together, for me, that statement by the president that he's going to give us a world class, and the tape is here, I mean, the clip, I've been playing it over and over, just to be sure. He said world class. Yes, Mary is here, Mary Aulana. I'm sure we've mentioned, we've had private discussions on world class, and world class must mean something. It cannot be this 2022 document. It cannot be. Because 77, Akufu, when did Akufu sign this law? 77, made this 15th day of February, 1979. Yeah, so Akufu signed this law in 1970, and before it, there was SMD 225, and then there are other ones. And then let's even add the chapter on this. And you know, when they did the investigations, you remember even the person Liman took over. I know Liman wasn't the original candidate of his party. It was Moro Igala.
Yes.
It's this laws, this asset declaration thing that he failed.
It was used to disqualify him.
J.H. Mensah also failed. Jantua, and quite a number of the different Kwame Nkrumah appointees. There's a long list. As we go on, I'll get it and read. Lots of people were disqualified. So I'm saying that we have a rich culture of asset declaration. Let's just do Sankofa. So with this context, when the president says world class,
so the current Conduct of Public Officers Bill 2022 does not meet the world class
at all. It's just, as I said, the heart of the matter being the publication matter. That's a reproduction of Article 286. That's saying that, so this current, the reason I'm pointing out, because Deputy AG has a hard copy, but we all have soft copies. In it, they're saying that the only time you have access is one, when somebody is reported you to Commissioner Wita and he's investigating. Then should you ask for it and open. 2, when a court of law makes an order. And then 3, when there's a commission of inquiry. Maybe for emphasis, we can just refer to it. So if you reproduce this in a bill, how can you call it world class when we've been making so much noise? So maybe Mr. Chair doesn't want to be the one to reveal. But if you put 2 and 2 together, you can see that no, the 2022 bill can no longer be the one that the president intends. So look at it. Article 286, Clause 3. It says, the declaration made under Clause 1, so it's talking about the asset declaration law, of this article shall on demand be produced in evidence, A, before a court of competent jurisdiction, or B, before a commission of inquiry appointed under Article 278 of the Constitution, or C, before an investigator appointed by the Commissioner for Human Rights and Administrative Justice. So it's only Commissioner Wita's case, or in a court of law, or a commission of inquiry that you can have access. So if you reproduce that in the 2022 bill, yeah, that's not the world class. This is 1992.
The world class must contain publication.
Yes, so it tells you the bill has moved forward, except that it hasn't come forward.
It hasn't still met the world class standard.
No, except that we haven't seen it. And we are preempting that if it is that, go and apply and you'll be given. We don't want any application. Just publish the thing direct. Just publish it straight. Let's not. So if I come from Boko or from Sandema, I should come to Accra to come and apply for. How much is minimum wage today? Over 10% of our population live on less than $2. The World Bank standard is $1.90. So if I convert that and I'm using 24 cedis, how much is it going to cost me to come from Boko to Auditor General's office here that I want the assets of Commissioner Wita to check whether what he has declared it? No, it's a disincentive. Let the man in Boko, the man in Paga, Chiana, wherever, be able to just, what do you call it, go on the net, because that's the other side. Now, a lot of the countries, if you read the World Bank project, they've reviewed, lots of the countries are putting it online. So the man should be able to sit in his village, take his phone, click, then he sees Commissioner Wita's assets, then he checks straight, instead of coming to Accra.
Fantastic. I know you have a response, but let me acknowledge the presence of Madam Mary Adam, Executive Director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative, local chapter of Transparency International. Please, let's put our hands together for her as well. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Mr. Damelovo, so would any law that we are even deliberating on now be fit for purpose in the fight against public sector corruption if it does not contain the element of publication? That's public officers being mandated and required to publish their assets so declared.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. And let me say it straight. It will not be fit for purpose, because the law assumes that the Auditor General is a mini-god or a demigod. Hence, he will know or be able to know what other assets you have which you have not declared. And I don't think that is practical. So for it to be effective, it must be known to the public, so that the public, like the Deputy Attorney General rightly said, is a collective effort. So the people can look into the declaration and say, but we have a 5-bedroom house here. He has not declared it, so that we know that the declaration is not complete. But if we do all the other things and we do not include the publication, I don't think we have gone very far. And let me add to what Lawyer Martin Kpebu said. before we go international, let's look home. We have a better practice in home where the declaration was published and to be verified, and I think we may have to go back for that. One big regret I have for Article 286 and at 550 is the fact that the act is entrenched, or the article is entrenched. So modifying it is very difficult. Why do I say so? I personally think that the Auditor General is not well placed to be the person to administer assets and liabilities declaration, except that people underrate the amount of work that the Auditor General has to do auditing the entire country, all the institutions, etc. The audit alone is too much for one person. And so to add asset declaration to it is to ensure that it doesn't receive the necessary attention that it requires. Because when you say you are Auditor General, you must concern yourself first with the main work of the Auditor General, which is auditing. So to be able to administer asset declaration and liabilities declaration effectively, I thought that should not have been first and foremost even the mandate or the responsibility of the Auditor General, but it is the responsibility, and unfortunately, like I said earlier on, entrenched. So changing it is going to be a very tall order or very expensive venture. But if we want to keep it under the Auditor General as it is currently, at least we must ensure that the declaration at least is verified, and I'm happy that the 2022 bill that I've seen has a provision for the declaration. We must ensure that people declare before they take their offices, and that is also being provided for under the 2022, which I've seen, which is good. But based upon what the Deputy Attorney General just said about proxy ownership and beneficiary interest, I also think that apart from holding people liable to public declaration, we must also add lifestyle audit, not only for public servants, but also people who are linked to public servants, be it family or relatives, so that we can ask that young boy who is 15 or 20 years old, having a 5-bedroom house, his or her source of income, and interrogate it to know who is hiding process of corruption over there. So these are my thoughts. I think that we need to do that. And one of the things I'll beg the Deputy Attorney General is that the publication in newspaper, I think, is going to be too expensive and wasteful, because the list is very long. When I was in office, we tried to determine the number of people who should declare their assets. There were more than 50,000 people. So if you publish that in a newspaper, I don't think anybody will even have the time to do that. It is easier, the law just simply say that we should publish it in the website of the Auditor General or any other website. And then there will be a notice to the public that this has been published, or a press release. And I think that will be cost effective than subjecting or forcing the Auditor General to go and buy maybe about 50 pages of newspaper so to publish an information which will be useless to the public. Thank you.
And you mentioned lifestyle audit, and I think that most recent case of a lifestyle audit being conducted on any public servant is the case of Madam Cecilia Dapaah, that we do know that the special prosecutor is conducting a lifestyle audit to determine whether what she earns is correspondent with the lifestyle that we have seen as well. And so that element, in your view, should also be very, very strong and pronounced in this Conduct of Public Officers Bill?
Exactly. In fact, when I was reading through, that was the first thing I was looking for, because that will bring quickly or bring up to the fore what to call it, assets acquired unlawfully as the law or the Constitution. I think under Article 286, either clause, I think either clause 5 or 4. One of them talks about. Yes, one of them talks about after the declaration, whatever you acquire which cannot be justified with your income, gift, etc., is an asset acquired unlawfully. So that can help us establish that easily. And I will wish that the law is also expanded to the point that once we can establish unlawful acquisition, then the onus should move to the public servant to justify. Because many times in prosecuting criminal cases, of course, the onus is usually on the prosecution, and corruption is one type of offense which is very difficult to find the evidence against the one being prosecuted or the accused. And definitely those who get involved in sophisticated corruption are very advanced in knowledge and technology. So they hide every information, and they have all the protection that they can think of under this earth. So the onus should move to the accused. Immediately we can establish that, look, your lifestyle is not commensurate with your sources of income, gift, etc. So then in that case, you should now prove to us that beyond that, there is justification for what I have. Thank you.
And when you made the point about we looking locally before we think about an international or a world-class standard conduct of public officers bill, there's a clear understanding, at least today, that maybe 280 did a lot more good to us in getting to know what our public officers own than the 550 that we have now. But the concern that the deputy AG raised is if we click or the publishing of the assets of public officers, members of parliament are also going to be required to publish their assets. Now, there is that challenge of whether they are going to be committed to really doing this, especially because we've heard some of them, their position on the publishing of their assets, that very ridiculous excuses, like they feel armed robbers who come and attack them and so on. This was as far back as in 1998. Some of them were espousing those positions as well. So how do we go about this expected lack of commitment on the part of maybe members of parliament who will be required to now publish their assets if this element is introduced or put in the conduct of public officers bill as we have it?
Thank you very much. Let me put it this way. It is not only the members of parliament who are not interested in getting this publication done or the proper declaration of assets. Even the cabinet, I accuse them of the same thing. There was a bill in place before I came to office. When I was in office as Auditor General, I remember I received a letter from the then Attorney General, Honorable Gloria Kufu, for my input into that bill. And it has been waiting all these years. Because I'm trying to say that even the executive are equally not interested, not only parliamentarians. But let's go to parliament with the right bill. Let them use their positions as parliamentarians to remove it. Then we know who are the enemies of progress. Let's not say that we anticipate that if it gets to parliament, they may not pass it the way we want. So we go with a bill that does not measure up to standard. No. Let's go with the best practice and let them reject it. Another reaction I have is the argument that people will get to know how much assets you have and how much you have in your bank account. If you want to play the game, then you must simply obey the rules of the game. If you don't want people to see your ties, you don't play football, because you won't wear trousers to play football. They will give you a jersey. You can't wear a smock and say you are going to play football or going to swim. So if you want to play the game, then you must obey the rules of the game. When I was in office, I had a lot of MP friends and other public servants who raised this argument. And I was asking them, look, even the Auditor General also declares his or her assets to the president, the same way as you do yours. So if you publish, mine will also be published. How come that you are so afraid of publishing? You have too much. I don't have too much, so I'm ready to publish. The point is that almost all these public servants are guilty of abusing their offices in acquiring a worth of assets or assets which they cannot justify. Hence, this shoddy argument that if we publish it, armed robbers will come after us. Don't the armed robbers know the type of houses they have, the type of vehicles they have? Have they come after them? So I don't think that argument, for me, it holds water. Thank you.
Wonderful. Let's put our hands together for our guests and panelists so far. If you're just joining us, this is the TV3 National Dialogue on the theme Fighting Public Sector Corruption in Ghana, making a case for an effective asset declaration law. And so far, all of us here have accepted that all is not well with our the regime of asset declaration. Alfred Tuah-Yeboah, Deputy Attorney General, is with us. Joseph Whittal, the Commissioner for SHRAJ. Daniel Yao Demelovo, the former Auditor General, the one you just heard. Martin Kpebu is private legal practitioner. We have also many other interest groups who have joined us as well, and also heavily represented here is the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO. Now, for those of you who are watching us all across the world on TV3 Ghana on Facebook, we're monitoring your comments as well, and the venue here at the Executive Theatre. We have a few seats, so if you have time, you can also pass through and join us. And then also having in here the Ghana Integrity Initiative, GI, and then also the Center for Democratic Development, CDD, all represented here as well to complement the all-important conversation that we are having today. Madam Jacqueline Abba Opoko is the Deputy Executive Director of Intelligence and Monitoring at EOCO. Before we went for that quick intervention from Daniel Demelovo, Mr. Tuah-Yeboah, you wanted to make an intervention after Martin Kpebu's comment. Yes.
I spoke about the bill. Let me just indicate that you don't have a finalized bill because Cabinet has to okay everything before it goes to Parliament. What we have now is the one we got out of stakeholder consultations. We've had it. It went to Cabinet. It has come back to our ministry for certain things to be done, and the Ministry of Finance to go back to Cabinet. And that's the reason why I think that this discussion is also very, very important. Because having learned something from this discussion, it's possible that it may be introduced. So it's not as if it's cast in stone that nothing can be added. Even if it goes to Parliament, Parliament itself can even introduce certain things into the bill before it becomes an act of
including the publishing?
Yes, yes, if they so wish.
Now, but based on precedents, I mean, do you really believe?
Why not? Why not? But as I said, even if it goes to Parliament without it, Parliament still has the power to include it and pass it as an act of Parliament. So let's discuss as we're doing now. If the consensus is that we need to publish it as we are all saying, then so be it. It's included. We take it to Parliament. We should be able to lobby our MPs because we elected them, and we want them to do what we want them to do. But it's something that all of us will have to be part of. Because the fight against corruption is something that I think that if you do not fight it well, you can have government A come, government A will go, government B will come, government B will go, and we'll have the same problems. So when it comes to this fight, we need to be very forthright, confront the issues head on, and see where we can take our nation. Because we don't have any other nation apart from Ghana. Unless, of course, I don't know whether we belong to any other, whether you're Burkina or maybe Mr. Asante, whether he's a British, but Ghanaians, we don't have any other country. Yes.
It is the lack of the political will. It is the lack of political will that has brought us to this point. Because some of the instances now, if there was a real political will to fight corruption, at least even in the public sector, because we're the ones who elect them, all of you come into office to feed on our resources. Nobody in the public sector is ruling this country with their own personal funds. So the least that is expected is for you to let us know what you came in with and what you are going out with, so that we will know how much you took from us. That's fair to say.
Because there must be this kind of balance sheet. You have the assets, you have the liabilities. I don't believe there must be a balance. If it doesn't balance, the accountants will tell you there's a problem somewhere. It's something that we must aspire to get to. Now, if you look at the current bill, there's a provision where if you do not declare, you cannot even assume office in the first place, unlike the current state where you can go and within 6 months you do it. No. In this bill, you must first declare.
You must declare before you assume office.
If you don't declare and you assume the office and then you take any salary or anything, you must refund it. And before even they assume that particular office, the head of that institution must get a letter from the Auditor General. You must get a letter indicating that you have done it. There must be a verification of that letter. So it's a two, at least a first step and a second step. So it's an improvement upon the existing one. But the only thing that I think is not in, which we are discussing here, is about the publication of the details of the declaration so made. Otherwise, I think this bill is a bill that we must push it through.
And the punitive regime, I think it's, Mr. Tao, you mentioned that. Because as we speak, there have been reports done by the Media Foundation for West Africa and a few other Fourth Estate and so on, who have been able to identify ministers, members of parliament, who have not declared their assets. And they are there. Nothing is done to them. So what is going to change in this regard?
Yes, let me address this issue before I come to your point. Anytime that we talk about corruption, and that's the fundamental problem, you think about the politicians. And that's where we are losing the fight. The politician comes to office for only 4 years, 8 years. There's a time period. But there are some public servants who will be in office for 30, 40 years in that particular office. And they are in the majority. So the moment we take the fight to a politician, that's why we have the political football. We're playing it. If we're doing it, we make sure a public servant, whether you're a politician or not a politician, because we have other public servants who have been in offices for 30 years. If you ask them the kind of assets they've acquired, they cannot account.
But you know that it's because they see that the leadership that is needed to fight this, right, is not there. Right? They benefit from the inefficiencies in the system because they know that even though they are there for 30, 40 years, if the political leader who is voted into power for that 4 years or 8 years exhibits the commitment to fight and check the weaknesses in the system, they will be aligned. The public sector worker or that public servant or the civil servant will be aligned.
Now, if you look at our laws, honestly, Ghana, we've passed a lot of laws. We don't lack laws when it comes to the fight against corruption. We have all the laws around. The issue is about implementing the law. And how do we implement it? We can implement only when you and I take a step. Because we can make the allegations. If you do not produce the evidence, or if the investigator, there's no evidence, you may say, oh, this people has done it. He has done it. But there's no evidence. The prosecutor cannot prosecute him. Nothing can be done. Aside this example, students or people who give monies to agents for recruitment, maybe police or security agencies, they tell you, oh, we are ready, we can pay 10,000, I'll get you recruited in the police service. People take money, they are able to recruit them, then they report to the police. These people who gave them money, the students, all these young people, they report to the police for us to arrest those people, for them to be prosecuted. I've made a suggestion. Those students must also be prosecuted, or those must be prosecuted, because they are corrupting the system. But the mind has been that let's arrest the gentleman who came to say that he was going to get Martin recruited into the army. Let's get him arrested, prosecute him, then we forget about the thousands of people who are trying to influence the system through Martin. So the fight is something that we need to look at it holistically. The fight is a fight that's not for me, it's not for you, it's not for my brother, it's for all of us. That's the way that we can fight corruption.
The collective commitment also needs some form of leadership, which is lacking, at least from now. We have accepted that point, is it not? And what has to be done going forward? Especially, there's been concerns about even the duration. Some have suggested that it should be done after every year and not at the end of the 4-year period, so that at the end of every year we know the assets you have acquired, if we're really committed to fighting corruption. Zawatao, what's your take on this?
Right. Actually, that is the way other countries are handling it. Every year, you need to declare.
Every year?
Every year you need to declare, so that we can see the baseline, the initial declaration. By the time you are exiting office, cumulatively, annually, we will know how much income you had or emoluments you had, and how much assets you were able to acquire. If we see some discrepancy in a particular year, it is obvious something happened in that year. It will trigger some investigation. So that is the way to go. But permit me to add something. Please. I was triggered by what Daniel Domelevo said. You see, there is a provision in Article 286(4) on unexplained wealth. Now, that unexplained wealth provision is something that the Commission has spoken of and has been pushing over the years. That if you have the provision there, that after the initial declaration you have made, you should be able to now let us know, because that's the baseline you've set, to let us know how, based on your emoluments, income, and other things, you can account for the properties you have had. Now, the difficulty is, instead of putting the burden on the prosecutor, shift the burden onto the declarant. Now, you explain to us how you got these assets. If your explanation is not up to scratch, then that property will be confiscated to the state or deemed as being unlawfully acquired.
Right.
Right? But there's something that Choyebo's office is doing, which I want to draw attention to. And it's very basic. There has been a criminal offences amendment bill that has been pushed out by the Attorney General on the basis of recommendations of the UNCAC, the UN Convention Against Corruption, when Ghana was peer-reviewed, and CHARGE was part of the peer review process. In fact, we led the peer review process. They saw certain provisions in our Criminal Offences Act which do not reflect the standard of the UN and the African Convention for Preventing and Combating Corruption. Now, that provision has been captured in the Criminal Offences Amendment Bill, which has gone out to all of us for consultation. And it is that if you cannot, that is the lifestyle audit thing.
Yes.
If you cannot explain your wealth, unexplained wealth, based on your past or present emoluments, and there is an allegation against you and it comes for investigation, the burden will shift from whoever has to find out, and then the declarant must now let us know. But the good thing is, it is a criminal punishment that is attended to it.
Right.
Very draconian criminal punishment of 12 years to 25 years without the option of a fine, which is wonderful. Now, that is one of many we're talking about public sector corruption, very wonderful recommendations or provisions in that bill. But for some reason, since 2021, nothing has been done. I would strongly recommend that the AG should pick that amendment bill and let us do something about it. Why do I say that? In addition to the unexplained wealth provision, which is rightly supposed to be in the Conduct of Public Officers Bill, it shouldn't be in an amendment of the Criminal Offences Act. We can place it in the Conduct of Public Officers Bill because 2864 is about unexplained wealth, and it's a conduct issue. Right. So that is something we should be looking at. But the other provisions are, one, misappropriation, embezzlement, and diversion of property by public officers. When there is allegation and there's an investigation and you are found culpable, you are put before court, summary trial and conviction, sentenced to 12 years. That's minimum, 25 years maximum, without the option of a fine. That is good in the light of what is happening in the country. Again, there is provision for private sector corruption. So persons who are in the private sector and have done something corruptly, either in terms of embezzling the resources of the company or that institution, can also be prosecuted, and also the same period,
12 years to 25 years.
25 years. And then corporate criminal liability. Companies should also be able to be prosecuted, and the sanctions there will be either blacklisted, the company assets will be dissolved and taken up by the state, among others. Because right now, there is no provision in our Criminal Offences Act targeting companies or corporates which are involved in corruption, beyond the individuals. that doesn't take away the criminal liability of the individuals who have done that. So with all these provisions, since we are talking about public sector corruption, these should go in tandem with the Conduct of Public Officers Bill.
You see, I'm concerned about this, and we've detailed a number of regulations and laws meant to fight corruption. There's always a concern about the effective implementation or execution of it. So that also demands some level of commitment. So yes, it would, even if this bill is passed into law, then that other leg of the implementation, which has been a challenge over the period in many, many other laws that we have in this country.
I will push back on that. You can pass the laws, but where it hurts most is if you are able to give sanctions, then people will obey the law. For instance, I've told you about the Conduct of Public Officers Bill. If under Article 286 and Act 550, somebody's drawing attention. Yes. Act 550, we have not been supported with sanctions, but only at the discretion of the commissioner or the chief justice. That is problematic. If we are giving what is being, pushed out now by the Deputy Attorney General, you can be sure we will apply the law as it is. As it is. I don't see a problem. But if you do the laws very well, and then where the institutions should be given empowered to apply the law and apply sanctions, you fall foul of it. That becomes a problem. Like what we're talking about, the Conduct of Public Officers Bill. If you pass it now, how useful is that law without publication? That's the point.
So because I talk about the execution, the sanctioning regime is part of the execution. So for instance, even in the current asset declaration regime, where we've accepted is not fit for purpose in the fight against public sector corruption, there are people who have violated this law. They haven't declared their assets, public servants, but they are still walking around. Nobody has punished them. That's where the challenge is.
I'll get there. I'll clarify that. If you look at the current bill that is making its rounds, that is Conduct of Public Officers Bill, you see that there is still a provision. The provision for sanctioning is about fines. Now, why, if I know that if I don't declare my assets, I'm only to pay 1,500 penalty units.
And get away with it.
I will pay and keep it. So, I mean, you are not encouraging anybody. It should be as draconian and drastic as possible. I know the work that was done by Dr. Asante and his CDD. They have actually highlighted the need for making sure that fines don't address that problem. If you ask somebody to fine, for instance, I know there's some RTI request that has been flouted by a public company, a public institution, and they are prepared to pay the fine right now because they don't want that information to come out. Is that helpful? I'm talking about the rumor about Frontiers and all, the request by Joy FM and others. They are prepared to pay the fine that has been levied by the RTI Commission. Does that help fight corruption? So it's the same thing if we don't put real sanctions that are biting, that are frightening. People can do their own thing. If I can pay 200,000 and hide my 2, 3, 4 billion houses around, and by letting nobody know about them, how much is that? 200,000 is nothing. So for me, sanctions become important. Whilst I do agree that it behoves on us to ensure that the implementation is also done, but you should support us with the sheer breadth of the power to punish, and that will be helpful.
Mr. You wanted to make an intervention, and I'll come to Madam.
In this bill, if you fail to declare or you make a false declaration, now you can be prosecuted. And if you are found guilty, the minimum sentence, you have 100 penalty units as a minimum. That's a fine. Maximum of 250. Then, or a term of imprisonment of not less than 6 months, and maximum 2 years. So at least you have a minimum of 6 months, and you can also go up to 2 years.
Minimum of 6 months.
Yes.
Maximum of 2 years.
Yes.
But you still have some fine in there.
In there, yes.
So that's where the challenge is, that the fines really are not punitive, deterring enough. So if you're going to put a fine there, then it must be as deterring enough to get people to want to do the right thing. But if you are putting 20,000 penalty units there for somebody who has been able to steal, I mean, for the lack of better expression, $1 million or like dollars or something, or 2 million, 3 million, then how deterring is it?
No, it's not about stealing of the millions. It's about your refusal to declare. If you stole that, will be prosecuted separately. This is about your refusal to declare. That's what we're looking about. If you've actually stolen, then you're prosecuted for stealing. You can go in up to 25 years. If it's about corruption, 12 up to 25 years. So that's a separate matter. But the bill is still there. If we think that we maybe want to just take off the fine and then stick to the imprisonment, it's something that we can also be looking at.
It's something that I think we all agree. We should be looking at a lot more of the in terms of imprisonment than the fines, punitive measures. Madam?
Thank you. This entire discussion is just showing up the persistence of personal interests as against what we ought to do so that we'll get where we feel that it would be convenient or useful for us as Ghanaians. If we look at other jurisdictions where so much, there's stricture about what you are required to do, and if you do not, it's very clear the sanction that would be applied. There's such a discomfort from that they are not inclined to go that way. So increasingly, you begin to wonder whether in Ghana we shouldn't look at some of those issues and also decide that we will apply what will be most uncomfortable so that those who would be minded to do so would have a rethink. All right. Someone may be a public servant, but would have, through dint of hard work and diligence, acquired a lot of assets, acquired so many things. They may also have liabilities which are part of transactions from the businesses that they are running. And once the person is able and willing to declare that, we know where they are. We can then monitor. For example, as Commissioner mentioned, where in some jurisdictions the reporting is, or the declaration is more frequent. Yeah. So it's easier for you to be able to track that, oh, this person came into an inheritance from a family member, or actually won one of the lotteries that we've been seeing flying about here in Accra. And that's how, it's on the basis of that they acquired whatever assets. So you can check the box. But where it's hidden, and there's a difficulty about getting to the root. And it also ties in with where you have beneficial ownership issues, so that people choose to hide behind a veil, or they make themselves available to support other persons who use them. It becomes a challenge against what we all want to achieve. And so that has to change. I believe that we need to look at that strictness, ensure that the sanctions are available, and even if there's going to be a fine, it should probably be in addition with some kind of sanction, which could probably even go further to impact on whether you can hold certain kinds of public office after that. That may be something which can be.
And a very, very important point there. But you see, for Iyoko, how easy or difficult is it for you to identify, for instance, if a public officer is under investigation, how do you identify the source of the person's wealth, as in the financial transaction that the person is involved in? Because there's been situations where it's one of the matters now being dealt with by the special prosecutor, the transactions engaging by a public officer, the source of the said transactions, and where it is coming from. How does IOCO also play a role in investigating the financial transactions that a public officer under investigation is involved in, even yourself or the FIC, any of them?
So once again, I'll mention the collaboration that we have with other agencies. There's a skill set that you have in-house in terms of investigation, where you want to find out what happened, how it happened, when it happened, who was involved. So you ask those questions to dig down to find out. Sometimes we have support from informants who bring us information. There are whistleblowers who are also involved in this space. There are people who may bring information but don't want to be known. They are not interested in any benefit to themselves, but they have deep concerns about what they have seen going on and are able to provide some information which we work with to achieve purpose. While we are doing this, as I've said, if Abba is the person who has been identified and as a suspect in a matter, while we are following through about the criminal aspect of the issue that needs to be determined, Abba would also have to speak to who she engages with, whether she's married, she has a significant other, whether she has children, her family. She needs to give that information to us so that we can also look at whether any of those people have been either compromised or they have given a certain support or received something from the ABBA under the circumstances. Now, if you are unable to give us that full information, because you are under oath to provide that information for us, if you fail to disclose that, that entire large space where we go to march on the 6th of March is part of the property that you inherited, and you have the benefit, ABBA has the benefit of that, and something as obvious as that, I'm able to forget, I don't include it. Then when we go through the process, find that ABBA is liable, we get to court, she's an accused person after her plea has been taken and we are going through the process. That property we'll need to assess. We have to verify from land title and so on. Has it been registered? We are going to find out that it's possible that you find, because of also our land tenure systems, some land is purchased from or is sold by families, some by clans or skins, some are required to be leased. So there are various ways in which there's a challenge in identifying, in the actual identification. But these are some of the things that we need to keep on working at so that the information will be shared and then the appropriate authorities can also take it up. I think we've got some progress about our lands registrations and so on. So these are all part of what comes into play. Speaking of which, the accounts which the person may hold, there's the very interesting aspect of people who are involved in criminal activity, and they now decide that they won't put money in a bank, but they either buy, procure gift cards. And keep the value of whatever that way, because I can sit here and use my Amazon gift card to procure whatever I wish. So instead of keeping that money in an account which can be traced,
they'll rather buy gift cards.
Or in the alternative, we will consider virtual currencies, the cryptocurrencies.
Cryptocurrencies.
So that is also something which is trending. And we need to also keep an eye out on that.
We've seen another element of the real estate as well, money laundering.
The real estate is a huge one. I mean, anybody who is interested in laundering looks at things which they'll be able to invest in. If I would wish to launder some money that I've come into, I don't want it to be known that it's mine, and I can afford to get some people to procure land or buy actual buildings. I would pay much more than the value just so that when it's sold, I can give an indication that either this was a gift to me or whatever, and I can now decide to move it on. So there are things that
this is an area that IOCO is looking into, money laundering in the real estate sector. Is this something you are looking into,
it's
IOCO?
part of what we are working on, and not just IOCO, but we are doing it in collaboration with other agencies.
You talk about the collaboration. What's the extent of collaboration between yourself and the Special Prosecutor's Office in cases involving public servants who are under investigation and the source of their financial transactions are being investigated? How do you come in?
When I commenced, I made an indication that we might be carrying out an investigation, which is a criminal investigation. If we find that there are issues of corruption, that aspect will be ceded while we still carry on with the investigation, because we do not have the mandate to deal or investigate corruption and corruption-related matters. So it would either be ceded to the Commission on Human Rights. We refer matters to them constantly. We refer same to the Office of the Special Prosecutor. If there's an aspect of something which is required from the Economic and Organized Crime Office, we support whichever agencies, whether local or international. We have memoranda of understanding with several agencies so that we can work very closely together to address issues as they come up.
On the bit of the fines, you wanted to make a quick intervention. I'll come and then I'll come to Mr. Chairboy. Yes.
It's my humble opinion that we shouldn't totally jettison the fines. I think in this country somehow we are too quick to increase punishments. But you heard Commissioner Whittal mention earlier, or was it Deputy AG, that we have the kind of laws that we have. If we were even implementing what we had, Ghana would have been a far better society. I'm uncomfortable about a situation where you yank out all the fines straight away. As soon as somebody breaches that law, you should go to jail. I think we may end up jailing too many people. Why don't we graduate it? That the first time, maybe it can be a fine. But when the person continues in such a conduct, second time, maybe. Because don't forget, in the not too distant past, Commissioner Whittal found Jean Mensah liable, right? Yes, and somebody reported as a declaration. Was it you, my good friend Thompson? Were the one who reported? Good. Thompson is here. So Thompson reported Jean Mensah for not declaring her assets. Amongst the Commissioner Whittal's, discretion, he didn't even say she should lose salary for 1 month. I think he just gave her the opportunity to do it. So what I'm saying is that it means that Jean Mensah would have gone to jail straight. They would have, jail too many. So I think the fine serves a certain purpose, that maybe the first time it can be a fine. Yes, and let's not forget the other provision is that you don't get to enter the office unless there's a letter, right? So if the letter doesn't come, you won't even go into the office. So let the fines stay for what it is worth. And also to further add, I wanted to mention the matter of the cryptocurrencies. Yeah, because reading around is one of the areas that the World Bank report I said I accessed in preparation for this. And they talked about public officers now moving assets into cryptocurrencies. So it's good that our bill covers that angle, makes it wide enough for us to be able to search the cryptocurrencies space, be able to find public officers who shift assets into cryptocurrency.
Into cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Now, Mr. Chairboy, the element of verification in this current conduct of public officers bill, the Auditor General can exercise that. Is it discretionary or mandatory?
Now, depending on the set of facts, if you submit and the AG, Auditor General, sees that you submitted ABC, but they have some doubts or they need more information, then they'll write to you. If, for example, you submit that their information holds that what you submitted is the right the thing that you've done, there's no need for them to write to you.
So that's discretionary.
Yes, so looking at what you have submitted, then they may want to verify to see whether indeed these are the things that you
No, but then what will prompt them to now want to exercise that discretionary authority? Because how would they then look at it and say, oh, Alfred has declared his assets. He has 1 bicycle, 1 goat, 1 bucket, and that's it. And so, yes, we accept that that is a true state of his assets. And then when Mr. Vital comes and declares, they'll look at it and say, no, this person, we have to verify. How do you do that?
But apart from that system, there's no other system. Because you submitted the form to them, declaration to them. They also have their own, maybe the former Auditor General, they also have their own set of verification before they can even come out to say, we've done our checks. Perhaps you realize that DAG, they are submitted. We've gone to where he comes from. We've gone to his firm. We have this kind of information. So we want to write back to him so that we can get the kind of response that he has. Apart from that system, there can be no other system. That's the only way that they can verify. But it's not every time they must verify, because if it's so clear that it's only for them to verify, they won't do it. If I go and then I declare that I have 1 vehicle, and they know that the vehicle was, they know that vehicle, they verified it from their own checks, there's no need for them to write to me again. But when they have any doubts, then they will write. But I know, Mr. Domelevo made the issue about the work that they do there, the volume. I agree with him. That may be looking at the 50,000 plus people. Then how do we even do it? So we can be thinking about if we may want another institution, but Article 2862 is something that we can, because it's an unfair provision.
But when there is a will, if I may just come in, the Office of the Special Prosecutor, didn't we go around it? Right. We can do. We went around it, Commissioner. We created Act 959, and the Special Prosecutor is working. So 286, I'm thinking that, look, just as the 2863 says there are 3 ways of accessing, they would just pass the Act of Parliament that they are expanding it. Very good. Under the current Act 550. During the Constitution say 3 months, Madam Mary has been complaining that Act 550 extends it to 6 months. And we've lived with it for 30 years. So please, let's go ahead and do it. Because we are not going to get a referendum now. It's too expensive. I'll even be the first person to say that too many people are hungry, so we shouldn't use money meant for the poor to do a referendum. Let's go ahead and pass the law, the Code of Public Officers Bill. Let's make the provision for the open publication, the verification, all those things. Once there is a will, there is a way.
Okay, Mr. Joyba, on this, is that the will to make the way for this?
Now, if you look at 550, it's talking about 6 months. But people have been challenging. People think that it is unconstitutional. Yes, because people think that the 3 months can. So, if there is a way, as suggested, that we can do some kind of legal engineering to have another entity to take over such a business, fine. But you have to look at it carefully, especially because the constitutional provision. You know, Martin, you know how people can just come and challenge any attempt to go through the unauthorized means to create another institution to do
so, if I may suggest the engineering.
Yes.
Domelevo is no longer in office. So the current AG would, what do you call it? Delegate. So he delegates to an institution. He's allowed constitutional duties. I think there's a Supreme Court decision. When it comes to local government, there are demarcations, and there's a Supreme Court decision where there was some delegation. The Supreme Court said yes.
Mr. Choba would have to leave us. So, in conclusion, there is now the acceptance that a lot more, maybe at least the publication of the assets declared by public officers has to be inserted in this Conduct of a Public Officers Bill. That's what you are going with from here, correct?
And if you look at the bill, section 4 to about 13, the first 12 sections, they deal with asset declaration. And even if you take that bill, there's something that maybe the commissioner is here. Gift is one of the things that we need to look at carefully. Because people can also acquire assets through gifts. And what is the mode? But in this bill, there's that kind of provision on gifts. What gift are you supposed to accept? What's the threshold? If you accept it, which are the ones that you are supposed to declare? So everything is also captured in the new bill. And there's this matter, you know, this case of expert interior ministry, where the Supreme Court gave directives as to how public officers should conduct themselves when we need information from them, especially from the AG's office. Because when it comes to prosecution of matters or even defending the state, we rely on public officers for this, for all the evidence that we have. Sometimes you get to them and they don't write back, and it results in judgment deaths. If you take this bill, there are provisions in it that if you do so, you will be sanctioned. So definitely this bill, absent, I think the only thing is about the publications, which we need to look at carefully. But I don't think that as a government, we will shy away from our responsibility. If the people of Ghana think that publication is what we need, let's go. Parliament passes it. We live with it. That's the only way that we can build our country.
Okay. Now, let's put our hands together for them while I go to Mr. Domelevo. Mr. Domelevo, on that bit of the internal verification mechanisms in the Auditor General's department, because you've been there before, I was finding out about the verification element in this new bill. The understanding is that it is discretionary, but then you also have some internal mechanisms to verify the assets declared by public officers. So even if it is not mandatory, you can still do a good job in verifying the assets, correct?
Yeah, that is very correct. In fact, using the auditing methodology, audit is usually done risk-based, and then we sample. Remember, as at the time I was leaving office, it was more than 50,000 people, and several offices have been created or new people might have been appointed. So I don't know what even the number is today. So if we want to verify all this, it will be too difficult. And thanks to Lawyer Kwebu for the solution proposed. I think it is proper if the bill can provide for the Auditor General the room to delegate, give the Auditor General that mandate or the authority, so that if the act is passed, based upon that act, the Auditor General can delegate that function to another institution or do it himself if he so think. I think that would be fair, that would be very good. There was an issue about we not enforcing laws or leadership. I want to touch on it briefly. The truth of the matter is that why the asset declaration currently is so defective is because of lack of leadership. Assuming the president, after 1 month or 2 months of his own declaration, decide to sack all the ministers who didn't declare, do you think that we will still have the high level of non-compliance as of today? That I don't think will not be. Assuming that the judges who did not declare, the petition went to them and the president set up the committee or referred it to the Chief Justice as required by the law for them to be investigated under Article 146 for possible removal. I don't think that people will have relaxed as it is now. But leadership is not there. Honestly speaking, the president and the vice, when I was in office, declared within 2 weeks, which to me was contrary to the Constitution, but in line with Article, at 550. Be it as it may. Why would the president and the vice declare within 2 weeks? And years down the line, the ministers and his other appointees have not declared. So they are occupying offices unlawfully or unconstitutionally. The president should have just wiped all of them off and said, look, my friends, you don't respect the laws of this country, leave office. That will have brought seriousness to this asset declaration regime. On that note, I want to beg for permission. I have to be in another meeting which I started.
Yes,
so
maybe a quick one on this. There's this current case study where there's this tussle between the special prosecutor and the case in question, Cecilia Dapaah, now on her assets. She's refuted certain assets that have been attributed to her. The OSP says that it was acquired in the name of some aliases as well. How then should these lapses or loopholes in the law that gives way for some of these circumstances to be addressed, at least going forward, to strengthen this regime, so that even if it's the OSP or the Auditor General that's coming in, the person under investigation would not in any way question the basis of certain assets that have been identified as hers, but in the name of other people not being accurate?
Thank you very much. I'm not passing judgment on Cecilia Dapaah. I'm just making a general or putting a rhetoric position. If I find a car in your house and you could not produce a document to show that the ownership has been transferred to someone else or it is registered in someone else's name, who do we hope or think the owner of that vehicle is? So something is in your possession. So you must produce evidence to say that even though it's in my possession, it belongs to someone else. So these are some of the things I said, I mentioned earlier on, that providing evidence against corrupt people is very difficult. Therefore, the law should shift the onus onto them. When we can prove beyond reasonable doubt that the thing is with you, then you must prove. Give us a proof without doubt that it is not mine, even though it is in my house. If you don't do that, then we continue hearing stories, which to me do not hold water. But I also support the argument raised by, I think, the Martin Pebu, my friend, that the jailing will not help us. I think if we want to make it punitive, we should increase the penalty units instead. Because if you jail the person, we are going to use public funds to take care of the person, and to me, that is not a solution. That is a different offense from even the Corruption Act, which may be investigated separately. So going out to jail people without even the option of fines and etc., I think will not be beneficial from my point of view.
So the fine should be deterring enough, at least enough money.
Yes, the fine should be deterring enough. The minimum is fine, but the maximum should increase.
Mr. Demelebo, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on this all-important conversation. Thank you. Daniel Yao Demelebo, appreciate your time, is a former Auditor General of the Republic of Ghana. We also have the Executive Director of ASEPA here, Mensa Thompson. Let's put our hands together for him. They've been doing quite some work on this. In fact, there's a current case in court on this matter. Also, the Member of Parliament for the Doma East constituency, kindly come in so we can see you. Paul Chum Berima is here with us as well, and he has also made a case about the simplification of the process of the asset declaration. We'll come to that. He says it's a bit cumbersome and doesn't encourage compliance. We'll get into that. We're live on 3FM 92.7, also live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and DSTV channel 279 all across the world on 3news.com. This is the national dialogue on the fight against corruption in the public sector, the case of the asset declaration law. So far, my guests, for you out there and the in-studio audience, have all made the point clearly that this asset declaration in its current form is not fit for purpose. The Conduct of Public Officers Bill as well, which is going to be sort of a replacement for this Act 550, has its own loopholes as well that have to be checked. We'll continue the conversation into the next phase, which is very, very important, about the process and punitive measures. Stay with us. We'll be back shortly after this quick break. We have Joseph Whittal with us still, the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO, and then also a private legal practitioner, Martin Pebu, here, together with the interest groups who are duly represented. We'll be back shortly after this quick break.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to demonstrate to you the superior properties of Flamingo paint as compared to other paint brands on the market. We take equal quantities of Flamingo paint and this ordinary paint. We then dilute them with water. And now, let the test begin. The gentleman on the left is going to apply the ordinary paint, and the gentleman on my right will use the Flamingo superior paint. As you can clearly see, Flamingo has the obvious better hiding. Furthermore, Flamingo has painted a much larger area. You know, one bucket of Flamingo paint is equal to several buckets of any other paint brand on the market. Flamingo paint is made with superior formulation to give superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage. Flamingo paint, simply superior.
like chop money. Dewa Chop Money is here. Collect your chop money every morning at 8:30 a.m. by simply dialing *446# and select option 2 to play Dewa 539 Chop Money. Win 40 times your stake with Direct 2, 400 times your stake with Direct 3, and 20 times your stake with Direct 1. You can also pay your numbers to win big. You only pick your numbers from 1 to 39, so winning is easy. Win every day with Dewa 539 Direct, the only lottery that offers you the best chances of winning. Collect your chop money every morning into your mobile wallet. Dial *446# to play Dewa 539 Chop Money now. Dewa,
In a world where every moment counts, one team stands ready to deliver the news that shapes our lives. A team driven by truth, integrity, and unwavering dedication. They travel to the front lines in the tireless pursuit of truth to bring you the world stories like never before. Get ready to witness the stories that matter. We have the most trusted voices in journalism who are committed to delivering accurate, balanced, and thought-provoking news. TV3, first in news.
Our mission here at TV3 is that the news comes first, and that's the promise of News Central.
With reporters every corner of the country.
Consignment to attain their action,
to production, to the lions, and experts across the subjects that affects you the most.
We stay across the big stories that impact you the most as they break, develop, and evolve into major national issues.
With all angles covered across the country and across every subject. I am Kemini Amano.
And I am Eric Mawina Egbeta.
News Central, coming soon on TV3.
TV3, first in news. This is Key Points, the #1 award-winning television news analysis program, providing an enlightened analysis of the key issues facing us as a country.
The key points of the stories that matter with the people who matter.
This is Key Points, the #1 award-winning television news analysis program. Every Saturday, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. on TV3 and on Free FM 92.7. TV3, first in news.
The news that matters most is the news that hits closest to home.
When it breaks, we are there.
If it touches your family, your city, affects your expenditure, your decisions, as well as your safety, we've got it covered.
It's easy to just cover the news. What we are doing is different, creating a news experience that prepares you for anything. TV3 News, award-winning journalism, world-class quality, on TV and online, right at your doorstep. TV3, first in news.
What do you men want? What do you want?
We want women.
You want women?
We want women.
Ade, you want women? What am I to you? What am I to you?
You are a woman.
Meyere, to me confirm Manchester the Betunsu. Achesa wodo brother. Medo Joda 1159.
Ubrezi ana usi hata hamana so ho no. Akoromfo be fa en wahu. Mi hu yo. Timi de say ona hamana yesi. Tumusa hamani ye nipa nko be kansa. One side pe.
Auntie B, me se me ko wo fufuo no e wo soro ho. To your back to say me. Ashi go gold. Nana ma go top.
Top coat. Odium pepepe.
Method, malaria game changer, no.
Raffle Coast, a chance to win big. Wallet, Yabatao. Kidder syrup, and Mama Freddy tea.
If you're this and every Friday at 8:30 p.m. on TV3.
Welcome back to the TV3 National Dialogue on the fight against corruption in the public sector, the case of the current asset declaration law. If you're just joining us, it's been a couple of hours of this all-important conversation. So beyond the public uproar and the anger that we express about corruption in the public sector or suspected corruption activities that some public servants whom we take care of are involved in, the law also has to be checked so that after every event we become an improved society. We cannot continue to do the same things and expect different results. Somebody had a dream about $1 million. Today we are talking about something in reality. My guests are still with me here, and together with the audience at the Executive Theatre here at TV3, and also those of you who are watching us as well on television and listening to us on 3FM 92.7. We have major stakeholders in this fight against corruption who have gladly made the time to be here and to associate with this conversation. Let me acknowledge the presence of the law faculty, the students of the UPSA law faculty. Please, let's put our hands together for them as well. Thank you very much. And to the stakeholder contribution, let me start off with Mariada, Executive Director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative. And they've been doing quite some work in this area as well. Mary, now hearing from the Deputy Attorney General acknowledging the fact that, look, the publishing of the assets so declared by public officers really has to be part of it. It's a commitment that they say the government has. What has to be done to ensure that after all these events involving public officers and their allegations of corruption, we would improve on the regime?
Thank you very much. I believe that this morning we have been educated for those out there who do not know much about the law. And so let me use this opportunity to appreciate and commend Commissioner Whittal, my sister, and my brother Martin, and then also the former Auditor General for their contributions to the subject matter. Unfortunately, this is a subject matter that has refused to go away because public officers, as they are, particularly in Ghana, believe that they own certain things, or as public officers, they must continue to do what they do and get away with it because there is no leadership. And I like that point about leadership, to lead the charge, leadership to show us by example. Even the Bible says so. If we have 10 sheep and 9 get missing, 1 gets missing, we are supposed to go looking for that one to ensure that everything is set. How do we as a people who have agreed to serve the public then refuse to let what we have be known? What is the secret? It is the greed. It is the excessive demand for wealth. It is expectation, and also the public's expectation of us to do certain things. I continue to say that, not to belittle teachers, I have been one before, but you see teachers who have taught in either primary, any level, come into certain positions, and within 2-3 years, they are living the high-flying life. Where did they get those monies? How did they come by them? We have an asset declaration regime which has retrogressed instead of progress. We continue to talk about the issues. Our politicians continue to promise us. And when they get into the positions, they forget the promises they have made. Let me be very frank and tell you that we have had a meeting with the current president where he made promises some time back that he didn't have any issues with having this particular regime strengthened, making it very robust and fit for purpose. meeting the standards we are talking about, the OECDs and others. Commissioner talks about the UNCAC, which makes provisions and expects that we meet them. The president said he didn't have an issue with this. It's 2017. Today, I don't know if he still doesn't have an issue with the same regime. Let's be very frank to say that. And at another meeting, he indicated that he doesn't have an issue with it. But the people around me have some issues which have to be discussed. And the reasoning that has been given to some issues have been mentioned here today. Ridiculous as they may be, some even border on witchcraft. If people know, if people know the assets people have, their families could go after them. And some also border on the offenses, nieces and nephews, then making unnecessary demands for certain properties. Unfortunate as it is, these are some of the reasons. Going forward, what do we do? Leadership is been mentioned here. I also believe that as we have put in place this regime, let's get it passed. Since 2013, we have been saying the same things over and over again. And we know that when these laws go to parliament and they don't get passed, the process starts every time all over again with a new parliament coming into place. Yesterday I was in a certain meeting and this was reiterated. We need to ensure that we have this law passed. Unfortunately, in the last parliament, Commissioner can confirm this. This went to Koforidua. We had several meetings, clause by clause, and it didn't get passed. Because some people we have asked to represent us, some people we have elected to be there for us, have refused to serve our interests.
The MPs?
Yes.
There's one seated by you.
The MPs,
yes.
They have refused to serve our interests. Unfortunately, Ghanaians have become so polarized that we vote without even thinking about what we are doing. We just vote because we are either NDC or we vote because we are NPP, forgetting some of the injustices these MPs sit in parliament and met out to us. We need public officers to be accountable. We know I've mentioned the executive's role in not getting this passed because they do this and realize what is happening. If it's come to the AG's office, it's going back to cabinet. It's going to remain there if we don't take time until maybe this government's tenure passes. Fortunately for us, I see a glimmer of light because as part of the IMF, we have some requirements in there that this bill must be passed.
The conditionalities.
And so, yes. And so I believe that since all of us, civil society and academics, do not have enough sense to get the executive to ensure that this is pushed, maybe the IMF's reasoning is beyond ours, and so it will push them to get this done. And I believe that's a light at the end of the tunnel. Somebody said, why is it that the light is always at the end of the tunnel? But this, in this case, we believe is a good thing. But the push must continue. And so that's where this dialogue is particularly very important. Whatever we harvest from this dialogue should continue to be used for our advocacy. Civil society must not rest. We need to continue to do the searches, document the best practices, and flout these in the faces of the executive and the legislature. The two organs of government must be forced to do the right thing. We need to continue to talk about it. So wherever resources are coming from the media, you also need to do this. Not do this for 1 week and stop talking about it. That is what we do very well. We talk about the issue, and when the next one rises, we all forget about it, and we go carry on with our lives. Let's sustain this dialogue, and we would make some significant gains from it. And maybe on the extreme, if they don't get it passed, we should picket. I think they don't like picketing. We should picket and get them to do the right things when it comes to that. And if they don't pass this law this time, perhaps we should punish some MPs for their roles, and also get people to make declarations of their support. Because during the RTI, we got Speaker Bagbin and other MPs to join us in this fight. So let's have some MPs make clear declarations on their views on the act and on the act we want passed, so that we can then discuss with those who do not like this and understand them. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mariada. Please, let's put our hands together for her. A number of the things you said directed to the legislative arm of government. I'm talking about Parliament. The member of Parliament for Doma East is seated next to you, Paul Chumberima. Have you declared your assets?
I've declared my assets.
Unfortunately, I can't verify it personally, but I assume that you have. Would you support the call for the publication of the assets you have declared?
Let me stand on the existing protocols and also thank the organizers of this program. Unfortunately, I came in late, so I couldn't get the better part of it. But obviously, between me and you, Alfred, you know, we've discussed this extensively. And obviously, Martin Pebu knows that we've initiated something already. It is something that I'm devoted for. And I have called that we should find a way that it must be publicized. And indeed, if we want to do that, I have actually moved at it, then let's computerize it so that we'll be able to access it everywhere you are. Sometimes, and you were talking about the laborious filling of the form is also a problem. And when I came to your program, I came on your program, I showed you how the form looks like. And obviously, if you look at what the kind of people the law expect them to declare their assets, some of these forms, they can't go through it. So we need to look at the forms. But in terms of publicizing, it's important we need to do it. If you tell us it's A, we need it is A, and when you came it was B, how you got your B, we should be able to measure it based on what was there. And I think my brother, Dafia Makpo, supports it. So the legislature is not against being publicized or anything.
A few of you.
No, I think it's probably what you might think a few. This program is important, it's exciting because it's going to draw attention. So those who may have not thought about it will not, hey, okay, this issue is going on. But I know a lot of people who are interested in this. There are a lot of members of parliament who really want to associate themselves with this one. They would like us to go further. Because obviously, yes, as they say, one bad nut will destroy everybody. They will say, oh, one MP is that, and you are doing a good job, they will label you as a wrong one. But if we're able to push for the right thing to be done, we will get everybody cleared. And I don't think this is so, I don't think it's so difficult thing for you to do that. I want to come to parliament. Before coming in, I have 2 pure water, and I have 1 microphone. When I was going out, I got 3 microphones. How you got that? We can measure your salary and everything. Oh, no, it's possible we can get your 3 microphones. What is so difficult about this? So I think we need to push it. And you see, picketing may not be. Sometimes picketing, we'll picket and they will go and run. Let's push for it through the appropriate means. One of the means is doing this. The other means going through the law. Of course, Lawyer Martin People knows how we can do this. And we are pushing for it. We have to do this. So for me, I think it's a good call. Members of parliament will support this. No one, if you want to serve, you must be ready to serve. If you want, you must be ready, because if you want us to know that you are really coming in for the right thing, let us know what you are bringing on board. You don't come and tell us that you want to come and serve us and loot us. We will not, nobody will want to do that. So I think it is important that this call must be nationalized, and it's not about politics. I mean, and one of the issues, the MPP, NDC is our problem. Oh, MPP will now, oh, MPP is in government. They will then do shakara, and then we go. And then when NDC comes in, oh, Paul is my friend. So if Paul is my friend, let me cover what Paul has done. We should move away from politics and hold on to the issues that will serve us as a country. Asset declaration is one of the means to fight corruption. Why has it taken us? And you see, even we are going against the law. If you know that last time when we started on the program, we saw a lot of lists of people who were supposed to have declared. Have they declared? Have the officers of the security that we know, have they declared? The DVLA set certain position, have they declared? So even they've gone against the laws that we say we are using to bind our country. And that one is grievous. It's time to talk about what we know. So I think it's something that let's move away from politics. Let's focus on the issue. And the issue is that we must declare our asset if we want to serve in a public service. The law is clear. no one is exempted from it. I think the president is happy to do it, and I'm happy that the Attorney General, who represents the executive, has committed to it. That if we have to push it, we must push it. So the executive will not stay away from it. The executive will support it. So I will call on everyone, and GI, Mama, I'll go and see her on the side that we will not pick it, but we will use the right means to get the right things done. Thank you.
But the concern is that even though you express the commitment of the executive, you are a member of parliament. So maybe you can speak in your capacity as an MP and say, oh, a number of your MPs that you have spoken to have expressed commitment to have this asset declaration, the publication of it, also put in the law. But then, even in its current form, there are people who have violated the law, haven't declared their assets, and there's no punishment for them by the executive, by leadership. So then how then are we going to be convinced that indeed the executive will be committed to the publication of the assets so that we all see?
Because again, people's attention have not been drawn onto it. That's what I'm trying to say, that this program is important. So therefore, my uncle who is in Doma East, in Kobede Supra, now knows that Paul Chumberima must come and tell us what he had before becoming a member of parliament. The education, that's what last time I said, NCC must come in. So therefore, before you pick up form, we should know, even it should start from that level. We should be able to know from the internal elections, at your primary, you should know, Paul, you have one black shoe, you have two brown. So when you are coming, you can judge it. That when you are now using a Lexus, when you are using a Toyota Corona, we should be able to measure from the ground. So the education is important. That's what I'm saying. We need to call everyone to be on board on this. We should not limit it to a certain group of people. It shouldn't be civil society. It shouldn't be executive. Every Ghanaian, trust me, at this point in time, every Ghanaian will be interested in this. At this point in time, every Ghanaian, every youth want to know what Fortune Burma is doing. Obviously, let me give an example how we can pass this. When the gay issue came, or when this LGBTI issue came, everybody was on board. Why? Because it was weaved around you. So when this becomes something that you must show us before we can give you the nod, they will fall in line. So we must weave it around you that it must start from the basis, from the scratch. And Honorable Martin was saying something, and which was good, that we don't need the Auditor General to supervise it or something, because they don't have the capacity. We need a specialized institution drawn from different people to be able to oversee this. And we don't need you to finish your 4 years or your term of office before we can know. Because it's also a problem. But the person has been there, so if I'm a member of parliament, you've not heard anything, 4 years, I've gone through. They've not opened my asset. I came back for another 4 years, they've not opened my asset. And I keep piling up, and nobody knows what's in it. We must be able to audit it, even in the course of your service.
So you are for the yearly review?
Yes. We must be able to just, even at one point, you should be called, that we want to see what is happening. We've seen that you were driving a Benz, now you are driving Bentley. Why? We should be able to question that. Some of these things went done. Obviously, we can prevent some of the things that has happened and some of the things that we foresee happening.
Thank you. Let's put our hands together for the NPP MP for the Doma East constituency. The CDD, Dr. Asante, is going to have to leave it in a bit. So, Doc, yes.
Thank you very much. And let me also add my voice and say that I'm really glad that we're having this conversation. And hopefully we get to a conclusion that we all desire, because I recall writing about some of this in 2004, and I've been to many.
2004.
Yes, I've been to many committee meetings where we were almost close to passing legislation. Even when before Mr. Domolovo came, the Auditor General before that did a CI, which was to at least elaborate on the verification and publication. We were at home, it was done, and it still didn't get through. So, yeah, I think we have to find a way to persuade Ghanaians that this is in our interest. For me, corruption is an existential threat to our democracy and our country. We have never been in a moment where I feel very strongly about that. It is destroying our parties. It is weakening our party. You cannot have multi-party democracy without parties that are strong. And corruption, and political corruption in particular, is completely undermining the foundations of our democracy. And if we don't take care, it will just make it very difficult to govern in this country. You just can't govern. You can't get any policy through. You cannot sustain any initiative. So there are a few things I want to just draw attention. Asset declaration is, for me, a preventative tool. And that's one of the things that I really support Commissioner Whittal on, that the prevention part of anti-corruption, we haven't really thought through it in a very, very serious way. If we were even ensuring that people are just filing their asset declarations and liabilities, that alone, that culture, that consistently, for most people, it would prevent them from engaging in corrupt activity, because then they have to assess the risk that they might be found out. So that regularity alone, if that was happening, will make a big difference. Then you can focus on those who are really committed to engage in corruption. It makes your work easier. But when you have a system that is so pervasive and so acceptable, then everybody just forgets the risk. So that's one of the things that we have to look at. And then I also feel that, for me, we have to also consider culture. See, we have to adapt these laws within our own context. Custodial sentences always makes it difficult for people to want to enforce the law. They'll bring your pastors in, they'll bring your chiefs in, and because Ghana, we tend to personalize relationships, even professional relationships, it makes it difficult. We have to look at administrative sanctions. So if you don't comply with the law, suspension, something that can even remove you from the office, the office that you want to use to abuse, you can be denied of it. You will come to the same conclusion without actually going to custodial sentence, which might be difficult to enforce. But we don't even do that. We don't even get reprimand. We don't get warning letters that you are offending or you are breaching laws that you are supposed to comply with. So it is very, very important for us to look at the sanction regime a little more critically when we are thinking, and consider our own context. What is likely to make people obey and comply with the law? My last point is that, for me, the public Code of Conduct for Public Office Holders is one of the big missing pieces, because that addresses public ethics, which is not codified. So every corruption case, you will see conflict of interest, nepotism, gift giving, undue influence, influence peddling. These are offenses that are not codified and clarified, so that if you can deal with that behavior, you prevent a lot of the corruption. If people understand conflict of interest and you can regulate it, you minimize a lot of the corruption. So I think it's a very important law, but as Honorable is saying, our people have not gotten to understand, and we really need to break down why this instrument is important for fighting corruption, and why we should expect that every Ghanaian should take an interest in it and play their part. Because that expectation also, that if you are in public office, you should amass all these assets and whatever, is also a problem that we have to confront. Thank you.
And you are for the publication of the assets declared?
Definitely. Publication, regularity, even expanding it to spouses. Because that's, I mean, the evidence is there. We can look at how corruption occurs in our space, and there are cases, convictions, that we know exactly the DNA of corruption in this place. And that should guide us when we are legislating on how to stop it.
Thank you. Let's put our hands together for him. Wonderful. I remember a certain MP who became a minister, and every time we asked him which of the property belongs to him, he says it belongs to his wife. Everyone. He never owned even one car, apart from the one he bought with a car loan given to MPs. But yes, Mr. Thompson.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Alfred. Thank you, everyone. I think this is a very important topic. We have been very passionate about this asset declaration for some time.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, the purpose of asset declaration is to prevent corruption, is to put a scrutiny on public office holders on how they amass wealth. It is not only to stop corruption, but other related, fringe benefits, which all are auxiliary issues around corruption. And so, it is very difficult to understand the current asset declaration regime that we have. If indeed the law was made to stop corruption and to prevent corruption and its related activities, then I don't understand how people sat in parliament and passed the current law. Because there is no meaning to that law. It makes no contribution to the fight against corruption. How do you tell a public officer to declare their asset on a piece of paper, keep it to go and give it to the Auditor General to keep in a wardrobe? He can't open it. Even the Auditor General cannot know what you have declared. And so you come to the office, in people's mind, you've declared your assets. Yes. Yes. We have made it so. And then we say it's only a court that can subpoena those declarations. And we've had this culture for how many years? And it hasn't worked. And for members of parliament, a number of them who are lawyers, sitting down to say, look, this law has not worked, so let's change it, has become a problem. Now it has to take the IMF. And for me, it's even insulting for us as Ghanaians that we have to sit down for the IMF to come and tell you that, hey, you people, your asset declaration regime is useless, change it. And we should put our hands on our heads and be crying, in such a scenario. And I think, and Kojo, I think people understand the issues. Honorable Ghanaians understand the issues. Ghanaians, know how effective this asset declaration tool is. The problem has been our institutions who are at the center of this whole regime, where they are going to be the ones touched or affected by this. And so they intentionally make, very, very, useless laws which they know cannot solve the problem. One of those institutions, Parliament, number one corporate, the law they made, very, very useless law. Again, Shraj, I have not been happy, and I'm happy the commissioner is here. I have not been particularly happy with the work of Shraj on this asset declaration issue. I have read a number of your reports on asset declaration, and it pains my heart. For example, the Shraj decision on what Lawyer Matspi was referring to, the case we brought against the Electoral Commissioner, Jean Mensah, who had failed to declare her asset for 2 years. Shraj writes a report, which I have a copy here, and I'll just read a line or two of what Shraj said in that report.
Yes.
Briefly. He says, in this case, the respondent was alleged to have failed or refused to comply with Article 286 of the Constitution since her appointment as chairperson of the Electoral Commission in 2018. Preliminary checks with the Office of the Auditor General disclosed that the respondent had not filed her asset and declaration forms as at the time the complaint was filed. However, when the matter was brought to her attention for comments, the respondent took remedial steps to declare her asset and liabilities to the Auditor General. We do not think that her conduct manifests a failure or refusal to comply. How can Shraj write such a recommendation, a report? That indeed, she has failed to declare her asset. But when we wrote to her that we've received a complaint that you have failed to comply with the law, they went to comply with it. And so there must be no punitive sanctions. I mean, it's very, very hard to swallow some of these things. And so when you have Sraj write some of these judgments, then it becomes a precedent where people say, okay, I'll wait. When somebody reports me, then I'll go and comply and nothing will happen. Okay. And so, and then, so Sraj is one. Then the court. The court is an important part in this whole declaration, because when it comes to issues where, you know, challenges arises, the court is where those matters will be addressed. And you have High Court judge, Justice of the Court of Appeal, and Supreme Court judges also failing to comply with the declaration. We did a case with Sraj, 7 justices of the Supreme Court, about 42 High Court, about 19 Appeals Court, failed all. And it's a big problem. It's a big problem, because when you continue this way, then it looks like we don't even have a law. You know, the current regime does not solve the problem. So the key recommendation is that the current asset declaration regime is a much ado about nothing.
Great.
The other issue, which is very critical for us after the declaration, is the verification. I don't know how you declare your asset and the entity do not have any means to verify whether the declarations are indeed true, because we have under declaration over declaration.
So, Mesa, there's something I want us to do quickly, because there was a concern that you raised about Sraj.
Yes.
Good thing is the commissioner is here. So, Commissioner, please respond to that one. Yes. Indeed.
But you remember at the beginning of my presentation, I indicated Sraj works with the law.
That's it.
We must either fault or sanction on the basis of the law. Otherwise, we ourselves are also subject to judicial review. So if the current regime says that upon investigation, we should take appropriate action and leave it at that, where is the appropriateness of the action that we are supposed to take? It leaves it so at large that you must be careful, because under 296, discretionary power must be exercised under certain circumstances. It should not be prejudicial, it should not be capricious, it should not be biased, and others.
So there's no specified punitive measure?
No punitive measure. And so we need to be very careful. Otherwise, our own actions or decisions will be subject to review. And if, as happened, we found from the Attorney General, the Auditor General, she had not declared, whilst we're doing the investigation, she goes and declares, and that is now sent back to us. That time, Domilevo was the Auditor General. He sends it to me. What can I do about that? Should I say leave your office? She can only be removed under Article 146. That's the point. 2, what other measures are in place? Unlike what is in the current bill, which sets out disciplinary measures that we can now apply, including removal from office, reduction in rank, and all kinds of things. That is graduated. We need to have been given that under Act 550. And that's why I said, in attempting to flesh out Chapter 24, particularly Article 286 and 287 of the Constitution, Parliament really did not do well. Because if, upon investigation, I am supposed to take action, appropriate action, why don't you then set out the appropriateness of the administrative or criminal act sanctions I should apply? And that is why we cautioned her, because she had complied. What else should I have done? And we have been on this trail trying to fight for a better bill that will make us now act the way you would want us to act. So let it come, and you see what we'll do to those we investigate and we make findings against them.
We'll take the resolution statements from our panel members.
Quickly.
There are two questions, so let me just, because of time.
Just 1 minute. Just 1 minute. Because
Mr. Thompson.
He responded. So just 1 minute. I will
in
take
30 seconds.
Yes, I'll just take 1 minute. You see, there's another case we brought. The current Chief Justice, Madam Gertrude Tokono, also same thing, declared after 6 months, where Shraj decision was that the Public Office Holders Declaration of Asset and Disqualification Act at 550 is saying, is giving them a 6 month grace period. And so she has complied, she was within at 550. But Article 2 says you must declare before you take office.
Okay.
And so, and we know that the Constitution says that when there is a confusion between a constitutional provision and an enactment, the constitutional provision takes precedence. And still, Shraj came with the conclusion that she's still within the law.
All right.
And so this is
Thank you.
understandable.
So they will respond to all of that. Yes, please.
Yeah. Thank you. My little contribution I want to make today is the publicity we've talked of is very important. But let's look at this too. We have also talked about it, but it's very important.
Your name, please.
My name is Enyo Lochu. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. You see, one politician takes 1 million Ghana cedis away, but 10,000 civil servants who are not directly being taken care of us are taking billions of cedis collectively away. And that is what is actually causing our road being not in good shape and co. So what are we doing about that? I believe that every civil servant, be elected, appointed, or whatever it is, should declare an asset. And every year, there should be review. And number two, every 2 years, if you don't review it, automatically, if it's an appointment, you've lost your appointment automatically. It doesn't need judicial interpretation or whatever it is.
Right.
And before you take any appointment, if you have not declared your assets, then it's null and void. You cannot hold the office. When those bonds are put in place, it will be very difficult for corruption to go on higher. So let's look at those things.
Fantastic, Enyo. Thank you. Yes, please.
I am Ni Amamati. And when we go back to our traditions and culture, in my childhood days, a child comes home with some form of a gift. Immediately, your parents will want to find out how you came by that gift. Who gave this to you? That's where you are questioned or you are scrutinized. Oh, so Auntie Maggie gave me. Okay, let's go to Auntie Maggie. Let me go and say thank you. Then they get there. Auntie Maggie confirms she gave you that. That's verification and confirmation. In other words, too, if it is found out that you stole the thing, you are giving some sound thrashing. They match you to where you stole the thing from. Give it back to the owner. Go on your knees and plead and beg. Yes. And that is SMCD 225.
I see.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Great. There was a hand here. That's the last one. Then we go. Oh, sorry. You know, let me exercise my discretion here. Give it to the lady, please. Please, yes. The ladies haven't spoken. Or is you were lifting your hand for him? Oh. Wow.
Okay, so my concern is, why doesn't the asset declaration be part of the things that qualify you for that office? That if you don't do it, you are not qualified, and that you can't be in that office in the first place.
Okay, thank you. And so, because you have a question to answer, I'll start off with you in concluding, because we have just 6 minutes. Lama Tupebu, you said the pre-requirements for the occupation of an office. I think it's in the bill.
That's a constitutional provision now, that before, all right? And then those who were in, they have up to 3 months, right? But the bill, currently the bill is done it in such a way that even there has to be a letter that will confirm that you have declared your asset before you get access to the office. So we are improving, but the major, okay, so that's I think to just make it short.
And then also in your concluding statements on this, in all of this, what should be the takeaway that we're going with in a minute?
So eclectic, the way this matter is going, Honorable Chumberima, yes, though you say you persuade this Mary Ada that we shouldn't picket, I'm with her in the picketing. No, your people, they only understand action. You see, so we'll give you a certain period to convince them. But if they don't, let's do the picketing. You see, this Gold Coast, this customers, fund managers customers. You see, they went and slept at the Ministry of Finance. Today, they are getting attention. So please, Madam Ada, I support, but we'll give Honorable Chumberam, let's say maybe 3 months from now. Because the IMF, you know, so, Excellent. Yes. Yes. So that's it. We should have. So let's agree. Oh, well, it's Dr. Kojo Asante is gone. But the point is that he is saying after this conversation, CDD is already showing interest that let's have another one. And I know lawyer this is Ankuma is also interested. Another. So maybe in a month's time or maximum 2 months, I will be back here.
We'll gather again.
Push. Yeah.
Fantastic. Madam, please.
I would agree that a
Madam
sustained...
Abba Jacqueline Opoku.
Yes, like Ikea Russo Yamiri. Thank you. From all the inputs that we've taken to and shared today, it's obvious that a sustained conversation around this will encourage those who haven't focused on it. It will to consider the issues. For those who felt that the fact that they haven't taken this matter seriously is having or giving a different impression about who they are, they would also reconsider. And then for those who feel that it would be really very difficult for them to remain in a position where they would have to comply, maybe they'll bow out gracefully. But at the end of the day, it's about Ghana. We have only one Ghana. And where do we want to be? If we are in a situation where time and again we have to keep running from pillar to post because things are disintegrating around us because of our own actions and our omissions, this is a wake-up call. Something that has been sustained for so many years, from the late 80s. These issues have been discussed from the Commission on Human Rights. Actually, this is my commissioner and my boss as well. I used to be with the commission some time ago. So it is critical that we have a rethink. Otherwise, we won't be able to achieve what we need to as individuals, as institutions, even the private sector, which sometimes supports certain people in public office by encouraging them with gifts and other things to go contrary to what is required. They are also a part of the issue. So we all have to become more aware and then address this matter once and for all. At least if we have something positive.
And some more bites for EOCO to bite harder than you are doing now?
So, yes, actually EOCO is also, we've been working with the Office of the Attorney General on our law, which we have run for a number of years, and the gaps have to be addressed. So we are in the process of a repeal of that law. So we've got really great support from our stakeholders and Mother Ministry, that's the Office of the Attorney General and the Ministry of Justice. So I'm sure that once that comes into play, it will also address a number of these issues, so that if you come to declare, speak to whatever assets that you own, and you somehow suffer some amnesia and forget certain things, if it's not part of your assets, the state will confiscate it, and that will be it. So I think that's an impact.
Great point. Yes, Mr. Otto, finally.
Answer the question first and then make my conclusions. Indeed, there are two ways by which Act 550 can be overcome. One, what Asa Nkrumah had been pushing, get the AG or the government to agree that Act 550 is inconsistent with the Constitution. Failing that, he threatens to go to the Supreme Court to have it interpreted and struck down. That is one way. Until then, it remains law. Until then, it remains law. 2, Parliament can overreach that law. And that is the process we are going through. It is only the Conduct of Public Officers Bill that would go before Parliament and seek to repeal Act 550. So these are the processes. Until then, I am bound by the law passed by the Parliament of Ghana. No matter how shoddy, how bad it is, that is what I can implement. And so it is rather good for you to be joining us in fighting for a stronger Assets Declaration law. And that is where I'll leave it. The other aspects, we can discuss it later. But in conclusion, I think this is a very good start. We have been pushing this on our own at certain levels, but we are escalating it to the national level. The debate is putting the issues very clearly to the people, and I'm sure if we continue to do another one or two more, it will garner that respect. And I think I enjoyed the comments made by the executive, represented by Tuyebo here. The weakness in the law right now is the publication of the assets. And then the member of parliament here also indicated that we should think of going online. These are areas we should be considering for this bill. When finally we have delayed in passing it, if we are going to pass it, let's pass a very strong and robust law.
Fantastic. Please, let's put our hands together for our distinguished panel members. Thank you so much, Lawyer Martin Pebu. Thank you so much, Abba Jacqueline Opoku, just like Equia Rose. Thank you very much. And to you, Mr. Joseph Uthau, thank you. Thank you so much for coming. And to Ghana Integrity Initiative, thank you for the affiliation as well. And to you, CDD, ASEPA, and all the organizations here and represented, thank you very much. And to the law faculty of the UPSA, thank you as well for coming. And to you, the members, general public, thank you for making the time to be here. And the virtual audience, we have thousands of you. Thank you very much for connecting with us on 3FM 92.7 as well, and TV3 Ghana on Facebook. On behalf of the team and the management here at Media General, with the team put together by Atukwamina Hazel, and then also Astusa Hiable, Erika Ite, and Dennis Baberi Wedam, and Lord Edward Sari, doing quite a good job behind the scenes, and the technical team here and the cameraman. I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for staying with us. We would have this conversation again if nothing is done. My name is Alfred Akanse. Have a good day.